Peace and shalom, family. This is your brother Divine Prospect of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, coming to you with a Sabbath message that I'm sure you will enjoy. And I'd like to start off with a quote that I use from time to time to kind of test the character of some people. Your enemy could be your greatest ally if you show him an act of mercy. So with that, I'm going to look into the scriptures and give you an example of this to kind of better elaborate on what it is that I'm trying to convey. So what I would like for everybody to do is take out your sword, your scripture, the word, and head over to 2 Samuel chapter 16. 2 Samuel chapter 16. And we're going to go to verse 5. Okay? And it says, when King David came to Bahurim, there came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. And as he came, he cursed continually. And he threw stones at Dawid and at all the servants of King Dawid. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And Shimei said as he cursed, get out, you man of blood, you worthless man. Yod-Heh-Wav has avenged on you all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. And Yod-Heh-Wav has given the kingdom into the hand of your son Absalom. See, your evil is on you, for you are a man of blood. Then Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and take his head off. But the king said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? If he is cursing because Yod-Heh-Wav has said to him, curse Dawid, who then shall say, why have you done so? And Dawid said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my own son seeks my life. How much more now may this Benjamite? Leave him alone and let him curse, for Yod-Heh-Wav has told him to. It may be that Yod-Heh-Wav will look on the wrong done to me, and that Yod-Heh-Wav will repay me with good for his cursing today. Now that's very profound, because we have a situation where there was turmoil between King Dawid and his son Absalom. And this individual that we see here, very interesting person, Shimei, came and cursed Dawid because he was from the house of Saul. And we know that, Saul had passed and that David is now king. So there was still animosity between the house of Saul and the house of Dawid. And the interesting thing here is that this person was obviously powerless, because King David was there with his soldiers, right? Men on his left, men on his right. And at any given time, as he was cursing Dawid, and at that time, that was extremely disrespectful, David could have gave the word and had one of his soldiers chop his head off. Like one of his henchmen wanted to, one of his guards, his armor bearers wanted to do that. But David said that this was the work of Yod-Heh-Wav. He said that Yod-Heh-Wav caused this person to curse him. Now that's very interesting. So, very interesting. Sometimes when things like that occur to us, when we encounter people, situations, or there may be some bad blood, animosity amongst friends, ex-friends, family members, strangers, co-workers, etc., you may see a situation that is unfavorable and adversarial to you. You see a situation where you've done all that you know to do right, and yet you still have enemies. And one of your enemies is there cursing you out. Now, this may be somebody that may have a lower status than you in the community, maybe a lower standing in the community, maybe it's at a job and you're a supervisor and they're a regular staff worker. Maybe a situation where you're in leadership and you have somebody that's part of your congregation who is doing this, or maybe it'd be a situation where it's just somebody that you grew up with back in the day that you've had issues with, and at any given time, because of your status and your standing, you could shut them up, whether that's taking them to court legally, or maybe you may be stronger than them, you may be able to hit them or hurt them, or maybe you have some friends, who maybe want to attack them and do things to them. But you have to keep in mind that the things that are going on is caused by the Most High. And if you understand that the Most High is the one responsible for the actions of your adversaries, then you would take heed to know that he will be the one to avenge if a vengeance is necessary. Now, in this case scenario, David was not struck by Shimei. Shimei did not strike David, okay? He threw rocks at him, didn't hit him. You don't see no record of saying that any of the rocks hit David. So he threw rocks towards his direction. He cursed him, but he did not physically come up to attack David. So sometimes we may get on that verse when that person may come in our face and yell and get angry. And then, they may attempt to do something but never follow through. But you always have the position of power and authority where you can quench that person's voice. However, because you understand that this is a greater plan at play, you have to woosah and say, okay, I'm going to keep my composure because I know that if I do something, then I am resisting the will of the Most High. This person didn't put their hands on me, so I ain't gonna have to turn up because there's no I fire 2 for 2 for you, so I ain't got to turn up. However, I understand that this is the plan of Yah, and I accept it, and I'm willing to see it through. Now, because David excused Shimei in this case scenario, let's go and pick up back on the story a couple of chapters later in 2 Samuel chapter 19. And let's see what comes of this. 2 Samuel chapter 19, and I'm going to start at verse 1. Then it was reported to Joab, the king is weeping and mourning over Absalom. And that day's victory was turned into mourning for all the people, because on that day they were told the king is grieving over his son. So they returned to the city quietly that day, as people steal away in humiliation after fleeing a battle. But the king covered his face and cried out to the top of his voice, "Oh, my son Absalom! Oh, Absalom, my son, my son!" So now we see that here David is in a state of grieving. However, Joab is telling him to man up, right? Because he's looking extremely disgraceful before the people. Now, during this period, this low moment that David is having, who is one of the people that you think that came to cheer David up and bring support for David? Very interesting. When we jump down to verse 16, it says, "Then Shimei, son of Gera, a Benjamite from Bahurim, hurried down with the men of Judah to meet King David, along with 1,000 men of Benjamin, as well as Ziba, the steward of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants." Now, he's bringing additional people with him from the house of Saul. They rushed down to the Jordan before the king and crossed at the ford to carry over the king's household and do what was good in his sight. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell down before the king and said, "My lord, do not hold me guilty, and do not remember your servant's wrongdoing on the day my lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king not take it to heart, for your servant knows that I have sinned. So here I am today, as the first of all the house of Yosef, to come down to meet my lord the king." But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, "Shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed Yah's anointed?" And David replied, "Sons of Zeruiah, or Zeruiah, what have I do with you? What have I to do with you that you should be my adversaries today?" Whoa, interesting. This person, Abishai, had David's best interest at heart, or so we see. He was thinking in the flesh. David was operating in the Ruach. And he says, "Have you become my adversary?" What do you mean adversary? My shaitan? Because you're resisting a will here. "Should any man be put to death in Israel today?" Why is he saying that? Because his son has died. "Am I not indeed aware that today I am king over Israel?" So not only did he weep bitterly for his son Absalom, but he had to go and be restored back as king, and he did. And in order to do so, he needed support. And one of his enemies became his greatest ally in coming and supporting David. He says, "So the king said to Shimei, 'You shall not die.' And the king swore an oath to him." Now, this is very interesting because I'm going to keep this short. There's a couple other scriptures that come to my mind when thinking about this. But the thing we understood is that David understood that if it's the will of Yah, that good will come out of this situation if I merely allow his will to pass. And because David yielded to the Ruach, We see that a couple of chapters later, when he was at his lowest point, and he was the situation when he had to be restored as king, the person that showed the greatest support, that ran to meet him and provide him with that support, was the very enemy that cursed him and threw stones at him. So how does this apply today? So in that situation where you have that adversary that is cursing at you, that is resisting you, that is opposing you, that's giving you a hard time, the Most High is telling you to accept this as his will, because there are things that we have done wrong in our lives, and this could be repayment for it, because that act of cursing happened openly and publicly. But if you understand the will of Yah and you strive for righteousness, that which you see as being done evil towards you will be repaid for good, provided you hold fast to your disposition. And because David was obedient, the Most High allowed his enemy to be his greatest ally, because David showed him an act of mercy. I hope this message was inspiring to you on today. Hopefully it's something that you can apply in life application in real life. And consider the will of Yah. Consider the things that are around you. Consider the situations that may seem unfavorable, but understand that that is still part of the work and act of Yah. So with that being said, family, thank you for watching. Enjoy your Shabbat. Until we meet again, peace and shalom.